This is the Tom Bigby Tales. I'm your host, Shannon Evans. Today I have with me Lee Harper, a Mississippi artist, and I'm so happy to have her here on my show. Even though she doesn't live on the Tom Bigby River, she does live in the rest of the state, as I so like to call it. Hey, Lee, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm
Of
so excited to
course.
have you
Thanks
here.
for asking. Thanks for asking, Shannon.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff you've been working on and some of the cool things you've done recently, and anything else that comes to mind that has to do with art, Mississippi, and fun stuff.
Well, I've been making things forever, but the last several years I've focused on miniature models. Not really because just love miniatures, but it just seems to be a perfect medium for some of these places. People usually commission me to do, restaurants or their house or an old bar or whatever it is. I've had tons of different projects that are all very different, which is really fun for me. And I have so many pieces now. I did a tiny Oxford book about 3 years ago, and it was really popular and fun because they were all like really fun, nostalgic places that if you went to Ole Miss or grew up in Oxford, they were really fun to revisit.
Uh-huh.
And now I have so many pieces. I thought, you know what? I'm going to make a little map and put a little dot everywhere I've made a piece and see how far I am from being able to compile a group of pieces to make a Mississippi book.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, what I'm doing now is kind of looking for fun places that are in the gaps of my map, which I have several clusters, obviously, like the coast and then Oxford and Meridian and Jackson. But I do have a lot of things around the state. And now these aren't commissions, I'm just picking them myself. But the last two have been, let's see, are y'all familiar with the Panther Burn sign
Oh,
on
yeah.
this with the solo cups and stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
I made that because I've always loved that sign with the wooden cutouts of the Panthers. And also, I thought that would be a great piece to represent and then name all of the really wild and fun names of little towns in the state.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then like hear people's stories of like, why do you think it was named this? Because there are all kinds of folk tales and then the real tales and then this, that, and the other. But the folk tales are obviously way more fun. But
Yeah.
you get to hear people's stories. That's half the fun of doing these pieces. I don't have to do this, but I love going to, if I can drive there and just scope out the town, scope out the area, and talk to locals and or people that know anything about the area, and then kind of do like a little video of history or just fun stuff, about that area. The other one I've done, the most recent one I've just finished was it was the strip on Highway 90 where Magic Golf and the T Rex, the huge concrete dinosaur was
Uh-huh.
in Biloxi. And I've had that photo in my files for years because I thought that is, first of all, the huge concrete, kind of crudely made dinosaur is really fun, and putt putt is fun. And there's a Waffle House. I mean, there are just so many fun thing elements in it. But
Uh-huh.
it also is the history of the hurricanes in that photo because when Camille came through, Rex was one of the only things in that strip left standing. And he kind of became, a little symbol or icon of hope, for the area.
Oh, wow. I
And
didn't know that.
yeah. So imagine seeing all that destruction and then Rex is still standing there. I mean, he's rebar and concrete, so
Uh-huh.
pretty substantial. But anyways, the everything got rebuilt again around it, and when Katrina came through, it wiped out everything, including Rex. But when I
Oh.
I know, I hate that. But when I posted this to a couple of Gulf Coast pages on Facebook, the stories, I mean, people, of course, remember it, but they would have stories like, oh my God, I ran the roller coaster there when I was a teenager. Or we used to meet our friends there and we did such and such. And, or we went there every summer and we always knew we were so and so many minutes away from where we were going because Rex, when we passed him,
Yeah, you knew where
using
you
him,
were when you saw Rex.
yeah, like using him as a landmark. But I'm fascinated by stuff like that, like little images that don't just have one little piece of history, but several. Um, Another great example is that I made the model of that Delta Cream shop. I think it was in Tunica, and it's just an old timey, drive up Dairy Queen style place. But William Eggleston used it in a photo years ago, and it has a very specific car in front of it. So of course I went to eBay and found that car, painted it just like his photo, and I made the Delta Cream building. And then I don't know what possessed me, but I did the interior as well with the little machines and stuff. And I mean, it is tiny, tiny. But then the third iteration of it was the Black Keys used it as their album cover. So when I made it, I did a little video of where I put you see the Delta Cream, then I put the car there. So it's the photograph version.
Uh-huh.
Then I made a little black frame that said Black Keys, and I put it over the whole scene. And they recorded that album, I believe, at the Blue Front Cafe in Bentonia, which is another huge,
Yeah. Jimmy Duck.
iconic. Yeah. So,
And if you don't know Jimmy Duck, you need to.
I know, right. I haven't gotten a chance to meet him, but I definitely I know a lot about him, and I have a lot of friends that are buddies, but I have not made that trek yet. But yeah, and then I took each one away, and there's just something really fun about having multiple stories. I'm a sucker for stories, and I love history, but I really love the stories and the people that make them up.
Uh-huh.
Makes everything more real. And they always have some of the funniest details and little things that, never make it in the history books or, anywhere. It's just, I just love it. I just don't have enough time in the day to do as much as I want to do.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
My
Well,
list is very long.
how did you get started with miniatures?
Well, it's kind of a convoluted story. I kind of fell into it backwards. I'd painted and made things forever. And then one year when our son was young and Elf on the Shelf was super popular, I mean, I despised that thing.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
many
think
parents do.
I mean, he is a peeper and he tattles like, and he's, I don't know, he's just creepy. I don't like him. So I thought I am going to do a skeleton every day of the week of Halloween, and he's going to do something funny every day. Right.
Uh-huh.
And it was just this skeleton that was kind of rubberized with wire in it. Remember how the old Gumby toy
Oh
was?
yeah.
And it would stay however you wanted it to.
Yeah. You can bend him, cross his legs, do all kinds of stuff.
Right. And so, because we love Halloween over here, and I thought this is my Elf on the Shelf. Okay. So he started just bare naked and then like doing something funny. And I'd put him, somewhere where our son would see him. And then the next day he'd have a hat. And then the next day he was doing this. And I started making props for him. Well, over the years, I did that every week of Halloween. And the thing evolved to its own series way after my son and my nieces and nephews weren't interested anymore. My husband had been putting them on Facebook without me knowing, and I wasn't on any social media whatsoever. And he said, "Hey, I've got folks asking when Mr. Bones is coming out." And I was like, "What? Oh my God. Oh my gosh." So anyway, I kept doing it, and it's its own little series. It even has its own little Instagram feed. It's called History Bones, and they're basically insanely detailed moments of history that I find interesting because they make no money whatsoever. So you have to really want to do them.
Uh-huh.
So they're only ones that I want to do. I don't take requests or anything. So some of them are really obscure. Some of them are horrific. Some of them are like forgotten heroes that people should know about. Some of them are just like customs, that have died out or whatever. But so anyway, I just was like, oh, I guess I'm making miniatures. And I was just thinking I'm making these scenes the whole time, right?
Uh-huh.
Not, hey, I'm a miniaturist. I'm just making these scenes. This is just a History Bones thing. And then I guess about 5 years ago, the Powerhouse here in Oxford has a Christmas auction every year, and it's called an ornament auction. I have never one time handed in anything that could be hung. It's really just a fundraiser. So, and they don't care. It's just like the name of the show. But one year I thought, huh, I'm gonna, I'm just gonna make a little model of the Hoka. The For those that don't know, it's like, I mean, just an iconic old spot that was quote unquote movie theater and cafe, when
Uh-huh.
really it
Uh-huh.
it I mean, that's very
You
loosely
did not want to be in there when the lights came on. Let me just put it that
right.
way.
It's better with the lights low,
Yeah,
but
and
I
you've already
mean,
had a cheap bottle of wine before you even get there.
that's right. So anybody that went to Ole Miss during those years, I mean, everybody went to the Hoka. You went to the gin, and then you walked over after it closed, and you went over to the Hoka.
Yep.
But anyways, when I made that, people flipped out. Like, I don't know what it was. Because I mean, there are paintings of it, there are drawings of it. There's something about a piece being three-dimensional. I don't know what it is. I do not know what it is. I've tried to put my finger on it many times, but um, it just opened up a floodgate of requests and commissions. And all of a sudden, I mean, I couldn't make pieces fast enough. I only do one of each. Now, I did do several of those Hokas just because I didn't know what my game plan was, or, and so many people wanted one. And
Uh-huh.
after that, I thought, okay, I don't like doing that. From here on out, I'm going to make one of whatever it is. And I think, I think I've only had a couple of pieces I made two of, but anywho's,
Well, how do you come up with the gauge you're going to use? I mean, like how do you scale it?
I really don't. I ask people, okay, about how big are you thinking, or where is this going to go? And
Uh-huh.
they'll either show me with their hands or their arms, or tell me where they're putting it. And then I just kind of go from there. I never measure stuff.
Oh
People are
my
like,
God.
what? But I mean, because everything is handmade, I'm not
Uh-huh.
buying anything for it. I don't have to, go by that scale.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I don't know. I mean, I just eyeball it. And
Wow.
if it doesn't seem right, then I will keep tweaking it until, it's suitable. But but that's also part of the fun, is they're not perfect. Because there are people that make like 3D printings of places and stuff now, but they're so sterile, you know. I love
Yeah.
the look of something handmade. I'm a sucker for, when I'm doing my travels and stuff, if I see a handmade sign, I'll do a U-turn and go back get a picture of it,
Wow.
I
Well,
just adore them.
tell me about your Walter Anderson model you made.
That was a job of a lifetime. I'm serious. I sort of lost my mind on that, and in a good way. The Anderson Museum asked me, or commissioned me, with a grant to make his old fields house, right?
Uh-huh.
And I got to go visit and see the inside and all that. which is great. And the crew there is amazing. Here's the thing. There are plenty of pictures of the exterior, but there were none from back in the day. And they wanted the interior done too. So we chose the front of the house, the first 5 rooms, and then the attic, which was the space he worked in.
Uh-huh.
And this would have been in the 40s. So get this, I got to interview his children, which saying children is funny because they're all like 70s and 80s, and they're adorable. I mean, they were so fun. And I know they've been interviewed a bunch, but I'm in there asking them, do you guys remember what was on your mom's bedside table? Stuff like that. And I mean, we had such a fun time, and they didn't think they'd remember much, but they kept jogging each other's memories. And they're like, oh my gosh, yes, this and this and this. And so between them telling me everything they could remember, reading Walter's wife's journal, Sissy's journals, then researching period furniture and furnishings, which is my other love, just researching anything.
Research. I mean, I get in a rabbit hole.
I know, and going down rabbit holes and stuff. Oh my gosh. So anyways, I was making videos the whole way through and putting them on TikTok. And it's kind of like, I don't even care if people see these. There is kind of like a video diary, because it was so much work and there were so many rabbit holes to go down. I thought, I'm never going to go back and talk about these again, each one in these details. So I made them as I went, but they were amazing. Just a tiny, for instance, I asked Mary, do you remember what kind of window coverings, like window treatments, were on the windows? Which, sounds kooky, but I mean, you want it to be as accurate as possible. And she said, oh, there were those pull down shades, the ones where you pull it down, and if you pull it down too hard, you'll break it or it'll flip up and spin.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. And she said, yeah, we had to have those because we were right on the coast, and it was during World War II.
Yeah,
and they would have blackouts. And so then I go down a rabbit hole of looking at old war posters about the blackouts and the artwork on I mean, it was bonkers. It was so fun. Oh, and the radio, how families used to pull chairs around the radio to listen to the stories and stuff. Mary told, this is one of the videos I'm most proud of, because we used her audio for it, her telling the story. She said that she was underneath their dining room table, and the video is me it's just like work in progress, making video while you're listening to her tell this. She's under the dining room table. Her dad and her granddad and mom are in the room, and it's announced, Pearl Harbor is announced on the radio. And she said her mom started crying, and her dad and granddad were, all of a sudden, not mad, but mad, but upset, talking, and the room was just wild. And she said, she was like 4. She said, I started crying underneath the table because all I could think about was my birthday was the next day, and that this war business was going to ruin my birthday. So I thought it's perfect because it gives you a time and place to understand what's going on in the seriousness of it, and the parents all knowing totally the seriousness of it, but also a small child, they don't understand that kind of stuff. And it was just such a wonderful little memory. And they had tons of stuff like that. It was, oh my God, it was so fun. I could have worked on that a million years. But anyway, we had an unveiling party and everything at the museum, and it was going to be a temporary display, but I think they didn't realize how crazy I would go. I worked on it so much longer than they thought. So now it is a permanent display at the museum. And there's a little kiosk that you can use your phone with that will lets you hear some of those interview snippets, watch little videos. There's all kinds of fun stuff on it.
Cool. Well, you also worked on the Junior Kimbrough
Mm-hmm.
miniature juke joint.
Yes,
So
that was amazing too.
yeah,
And
because I posted something you were doing on my Facebook page, and then my writing mentor, whose name is Gary Lilly, he had done some. He'd actually gone out there to interview Junior. And
okay.
so that was fascinating. He and I were watching that with great glee and enjoying that. So Gary and I watched that get pulled together. We were sending stuff back and forth. He's like, "Did you see this?" I was like, "Yeah, no." So
Did
that was
you did you guys see the final one
yes, we did. And
where it's like walking through there? My sweet husband figured out how to do that and did
oh,
all that.
really?
Yeah.
The clever
Um,
man.
I know. The fun part about that, or the interesting part, was whenever I do a piece, whenever I get commissioned for something, I will scour everywhere for reference photos, whatever I can get my hands on, interviews, anything just to get in the feel of it.
Uh-huh.
I watch untold number of horrible YouTube videos of people there. It's totally dark. It's like you get queasy watching it because they're clearly like dancing or
Yeah.
something. Can't see anything, right? So my friend Bill Steber, the photographer, he had gone in the 90s um, to Junior several times and had basically he paid him money, first of all, and asked permission because you really were not supposed to go in there with the camera and video
Yeah.
and all that. And so they worked it out, and because he wanted to document the interior like in the daytime, to where you could
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
So every inch, well, not the bathrooms. He said, do not worry about that. You don't want to do that. So
Yeah.
no need to recreate those. But because it's full of murals all over the place, insane colors, all kinds of wackadoo carpentry. I'm saying that loosely as well. I mean, it's like eye candy. And I mean, on the walls of the shellac has glitter in it. I mean, it is wild. It is the coolest interior. On the exterior, it looks just like a barn. No
Uh-huh.
big deal. And then the inside is one of the coolest things, but it wouldn't have been possible to make it without Bill's photos.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely. Because I mean, everything else nobody was there documenting the walls and the ceiling and all that. They're just there having a good time and taking pictures of themselves dancing or, whatever. And the colors don't show up at night, but the light's down. So, anyway, that was a blast. And I got to take that to the Max in Meridian, and it was on display there, and I got to talk on it, which was fun too. And Bill came to that one.
Oh,
So
wow.
he's the expert on Junior, and I'm the expert on making the place.
Um, so then did you make one of Lusco's?
No, they were thinking about it. I had a friend, one of the partners, invite me to go have dinner. They close. Well,
Yeah.
no, they are closed. They closed at the end of May. And so we got to have a fantastic dinner there. One of the last nights, I think it was mid-May. And they were thinking about making a piece for the new place. So that is a possible
Ooh.
right now.
Well, that would
Yeah.
be cool. I'd be interested in watching that happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I recently did the article um on uh the nutshell miniatures up in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
And you went up there to see them. You got to see them. Did you see them at the Smithsonian or did you see them at where they're kept?
I got to see them in the Baltimore medical examiner's office, top floor. That's where they live.
Okay. So
And
did you
that,
know before then the connection to Mississippi?
I was going to tell you, I did not, because I thought, oh, why did Shannon do a Nutshells podcast here? I listened, I was like, how do I not know that? Oh my gosh,
Yeah, she was
that's
married
crazy.
to Stephen D. Lee's son, Blewett.
That's wild.
I know. They
I
divorced in
love it.
late 1914, but still.
Still, I didn't know there was any Mississippi connection
Oh
whatsoever.
yeah. And they had their engagement parties and the weddings. Yeah, all that stuff was here in Columbus.
That is wild. I mean, I love that woman, so that makes me like her even more.
I know she was a character. Can you imagine her going, well, you know what? I got money. We don't need to be married.
Right.
Yeah, you keep
Right.
your money. Sorry, Harrison. Um,
Well, and her story is kind of sad too. Because she wanted to go in law enforcement early. Like when
she
she was
wanted to be
in,
a doctor first.
she wanted to do a lot of things, and her parents were like, no, lady, you don't
Nice
do that.
girls get educated at home and then they get married.
Right. And so she didn't start her nutshells until her
After
parents died. And she's like freaking 60 or something. But
well,
what's fun,
it was after she and Blewett divorced, and she was like, "Okay, I gotta have something to do."
right. Well, and what's funny is the ladylike activities like sewing and making miniatures and all that stuff then came in hand,
Came into
perfectly
fashion, yeah,
when making the nutshells. She used
yeah.
all the skills, which
She's
I
like,
just love
"Fine,
that.
I'll do ladylike stuff, but I'm gonna do it on my terms." I love
Right.
her. She's
I
just
know.
fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah. She's yeah, that was a trip of a lifetime too. Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. When
So describe
Bruce,
some of them because I didn't go into a lot of detail because I mostly wanted to focus on her and her accomplishments.
well, they're crime scenes and they're based on photos of real crime scenes, right? And when you look at them from afar, you're like, oh, look at this dollhouse stuff. These are really pretty. And you get up close and you're like, oh my God,
There's a
there's like
there's a
blood
lady in the
and
bathtub bleeding to death.
that's right. And they're scenes of death. And the reason they're called unexplained deaths is they were meant to train people on, is this a murder, an accident, a suicide, natural, or was it a murder disguised as one of those things? You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So and no joke, while I was there was a class of cadets that came through studying them. They still use those as
Oh
a
wow.
study tool. Yeah, on how to observe, how to observe a crime scene. Because when Francis was helping the police department, that was the time period when dozens of cops would just be walking through
A crime
crime
scene. Yeah.
scenes with their coffee and cigarettes and
Mucking it all
they
up.
right. And so she helped develop a system, on how to treat a crime scene,
How are
which
they
that's why,
preserving them?
right, right. Or at least, coming in and doing all that, getting all the photos, all the evidence you need before you let a bunch of people ransack it, you know.
Oh wow. How are they preserving the nutshells? How are they being preserved? Because they've got to be
Well,
fragile to some extent.
they're so you go in this room and it looks like they're in little windows. So
Uh-huh.
basically they're cubbies, built-in cubbies,
Uh-huh.
lit up perfectly well, to where you obviously can't touch any. But Bruce opened several of the compartments for me, and I got to see the backs of some of them that you never see in photos. Girl, I was in hog heaven. It
Oh, how
was
wonderful.
unbelievable. He showed me little bitty scribbling graffiti on the inside of a jail cell that, I mean, no photos show that. Um,
Wow.
and he took a little bitty pencil tip, to open the door. Like you don't touch anything on it, but the detail is absolutely insane. Like the furniture all the drawers, everything works. And she did hire carpenters and people like that
Yeah.
to make a lot of that stuff. Because I mean,
Yeah.
they are nuts. I mean, the detail is incredible. But I've always just been fascinated with them, and obviously other people are too. When they went to the Smithsonian, I mean, I think the numbers were through the roof of people that came
Oh,
to see the
wow.
things. Yeah, they're hugely popular.
How do you, when you're working on these, how do you preserve your eyesight? And I mean, because, I mean, granted, I mean, I'm not asking your age, so please don't tell. But neither of us are exactly right out of Ole Miss. It's,
Right,
it's been
right.
a let's just say more than a decade. So
Yeah.
our eyes are not what they once were. So how do you work in this miniature and not go blind?
Well,
I'm just gonna be honest.
I have a million lights in here, and I also wear reading glasses. And I will say, over the last year, I've had to up
The
the
intensity.
strength, yeah, the intensity.
Hmm.
I try to take breaks, but I'm not gonna lie, I sit out here and I just lose time working on stuff. But
Hmm.
I mean, I'm sure it's taken a toll, but I just went to the eye doctor last week and he said I looked great. So he said just keep getting stronger readers. I think you're fine. So
Oh,
at some point I may end up with like some steampunk looking crazy glasses thing on my head, to see, but
I totally get
I, I
it.
guess I will do that. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it.
Totally get that.
But that is a good question.
Wow.
I get that all the time.
So, where did you learn? I mean, did you go to art school originally, or did you major in something else?
I went to Southern to be in the art department, and I did that for about a year and a half. And the way they teach it, I just got burned out. And I thought, you know what? Let's take some English classes as well. And I'll come back full time to this because I mean, I was doing that 24/7, like just completely burned myself out. And arts, I mean, anyway, never mind. And I ended up majoring in English and getting a minor in art and philosophy. so,
Oh, wow.
so yeah. Um, so I like to think that I use a lot of stuff, which is funny because I wasn't interested in history at all in school. It was
Uh-huh.
not until after that. But honestly, it's history is just storytelling.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting to me is I've always been interested in history. I just didn't like the way it was being taught.
That's right. The way they do it at school. And granted, they have to cover such insane amounts of time. You can't get into the fun stuff.
Yeah.
But history is fun. If you aren't interested in some kind of history, then I cannot help you. You know, I I mean, it's fascinating. Um, I for instance, this is another goofy rabbit hole. Uh, I was making the porch swing on the Oldfields piece, right?
Uh-huh.
So I'm just looking up what porch swings the styles were at that time period. I've come across an article about porch swings, and I'm looking through all the photos, and in one there's a lady and her daughter sitting on the swing, and she's got a blanket on her lap and it's spread out. I'm like, that looks familiar. I swear to you, it ended up being the logo for the Titanic. I can't, was it White Star? I'm not sure what
Starline, yeah, White Star Line.
White Star Line. She had this whole Titanic backstory. And I mean, excuse me? This is an article about porch swings. So I went all through that. Like her husband died on, I mean, it was wild. But I'm like, how can people not be interested in things? I just don't understand. I just find it fascinating.
Yeah.
And that's what
It always
my
amazes
is.
me what people don't pay attention to.
I know. I mean, I've got a friend who does photography, and he put a book out, I guess a year or two ago, and it's called Noticings. And I thought that's an interesting phrase or, term. And the more I've thought about that, it's perfect because I mean, I consider myself a noticer. Like, I love to go just look at details and notice things and notice people
Uh-huh.
and look at, I just think it's perfect.
Wow.
I mean, I love being curious and I love noticing things. Um, maybe that makes me easily entertained, but honestly, I don't have a lot of patience except for the things that I'm interested in.
Now you sound like
Not,
me. And it
that's the
changes
other,
from week to week. I get bored
that's
easily, I
right.
guess.
That's right.
I guess I'm an ADD historian. 'Cause I bounce
Right.
around my interests. So
Right.
when you're building, what are some of the what are some of the typical tools you use? And then what are some of the things you do that maybe tools or resources you use that are very unusual that like you never would occur to people that you might need making your miniatures?
Well, funnily enough, I only use one knife for all my cutting,
Uh-huh.
even like whittling. And it's one of those, it's a heavy duty, the little, it's like a box cutter, but it's really skinny and it's got the snap off blades,
Oh yeah.
but not the light plastic ones. This is a heavy metal one. So it's
Uh-huh.
got a head to it. That's not what you're supposed to use when you're whittling, but I do. I started using that when I worked at a newspaper in Arizona many, many years ago, and I worked in the graphics department, and you had to cut and paste and wax the
I
the text.
remember.
That's
I
that's
remember
giving
pay
my age.
stuff. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
cut and paste. So
I grew up in a newsroom. My mother was a
oh,
yeah,
okay.
my mother was a managing editor of a local newspaper. And before that, she was a news editor and a managing writer and a feature writer and all that kind of stuff. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so I
Okay.
literally grew up in a newsroom. Like,
Well, that time period for life has made me I have one of these on me most of the time, and to pull it in and out of your pocket and stuff.
oh yeah.
um it's just my most comfortable knife, and I actually have my sweet son bought me some nice carving knives for Christmas, and don't tell him, but I haven't opened them yet.
Oops.
Like,
You may find
I
out if he
know
listens to this podcast.
I'm probably giving myself arthritis not using them, but you know what you like and you know what's comfortable. But I use Gorilla Glue, super glue, the gel, not the
Uh-huh.
regular. The other's too runny. It's got to be gel. And then just a ton of different wood and paint and um hard cardstock. If I need to sculpt something, I found an art supply version of epoxy, and you have to mix the two things
Yeah, yeah.
together. But the stuff you
The
get from
bane of my existence.
the kind you get at the hardware store, you have like what, a minute or two
If
before it
that.
starts to harden.
If
This
that.
stuff, God, I mean, and it's very anxiety
Yeah.
inducing because you can't even focus. It starts to harden so quickly. But the art supply, I got it in the models section. Like the little cars and planes
Uh-huh.
section. It stays pliable for like 40 minutes.
Oh
What?
wow.
Then gets as hard as the epoxy. I mean, it's like steel when it's finished. It's incredible. So I that was a fun find. Um, it's pretty expensive, so I don't use it that much. And the two tubes that come, they
Uh-huh.
look like two rancid hot dogs in plastic when they come out of the box. I got such a kick out of that, like, because it looks like a hot dog, but it's this weird yellow green color. I'm
Uh-huh.
like, oh Lord. But anyways, I don't have sophisticated tools. I'm sure I could really use like some kind of like small uh table saw, or um I'm sure I could use some power tools. I use a drill some, but not really much.
Huh.
I'm very low-fi over here.
Um, so if somebody wanted to get into this type of work, how do they get started?
Just start making stuff. And if you don't like it, just trash it and start
Do you
over.
need to buy fancy kits to get started or fancy tools? You just kind of get going.
No, just get going. Just sit down and get going. Yeah. Um, I've I've taught myself most things, but I mean, I've made stuff forever, and that always translates into other things.
Hmm.
Um, like specialty paint finishes, or um, making tiny little bricks and then stacking them right. Just all kinds of things. But I don't know. Of course, there are people on social media that make things, and some people make tutorial videos, and those are fun. So sometimes you learn things from that.
Uh-huh.
But basically, I would just say start making stuff, see what happens.
Cool.
Just be patient with it.
Patience is not my virtue.
I have people all the time that say, "Gosh, you must have the patience of Job." And I said, "I really don't. I have such little patience,
So,
except in my studio."
so now that leads me to this question. Do you like not drink caffeine or anything? How do you keep your hand from shaking?
Well, I have cut down on caffeine, but honestly, that has it's never really made me do that. I don't know why, but I have had to limit it to like a cup and a half in the morning, because I used to just drink it all day, but my body not like that anymore.
Yeah, in the winter, I'm telling you, I mainline it. I probably ooze coffee when I walk out of the shower. Probably comes right out of my
Right,
pores.
right.
I love a good cup of coffee. Um, so uh, what's next?
Well, I've got my own little list of places I'm making to fill in this map. Also, I've got a couple of commissions coming up. I'm got to see if these people are still interested, but I'm just getting back in the swing of making things that are smaller than a 6-month build, which last year it was old fields and then juniors. I made
Uh-huh.
2 things last year. They were so huge, which
Oh wow.
sounds odd to say, but
How long did it take you to make the T-Rex park?
I guess about a week.
I love
Yeah.
that one. I love the Waffle House. The Waffle House just makes it.
Oh, I've been waiting to put Waffle House somewhere. I, I was excited about that.
Well, you know my fascination with the Waffle House and all the stories that come out of the Waffle House. I swear I'm going to do a Waffle House novel. I've just got to.
That'd be
It,
great.
it's got to be done because it's such a
Yes.
ubiquitous part of the South now. It's right up there with the Dollar General. There's got to be. I mean, maybe I
Yes.
should do one. All the break-ins, all the robberies of all the Dollar Generals. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. I tell you what, I've been traveling a lot lately, and I'd say the last couple of years, I get really sleepy in the afternoons driving.
Uh-huh.
And when I do that, I always look up Waffle House nearest me. And
Oh,
I
funny.
go in, and I'm telling you, the last 4 or 5 times I've gone in, granted, it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So not, you know, main eating hours, but I've had the whole place to myself, and I sit at the bar, and I feel them out quickly if it feels like the employees aren't in a talking mood, I don't want to be a weirdo and like just start
Yeah.
talking. But
Yeah.
every single time we have gotten into hilarious conversations, and the cook too. All kinds of funny stuff. I love doing that. And then of course drink a bunch of coffee and hit the
Oh,
road.
and then there's that. Plus, the over air conditioned rooms always make it a good wake up point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Lee,
Yes.
I really have enjoyed this, and I can't wait to see what you build out next. If people wanted to follow you and what you're doing, is there a way to follow you? Do you prefer they follow you on Instagram, or how can we
Instagram.
be voyeurs?
Well, I very much invite people to come along. On Instagram, it's Lee Harper Oxford, and that's Lee like a boy. It's Lee Harper on Facebook. And if you're interested in the little skeleton dioramas, that is History Bones on Instagram.
I love History Bones. I've been following History Bones for a while, so
I know. I miss it. I kind of had to quit when our son was in college because we were so broke trying to pay for college. And like I
uh-huh.
said, History Bones is just a labor of love. Like I had to be working on commissions and
Understood.
not, so I'll pick it back up at some point. At some point, maybe a long lost uncle will die and leave me
A
enough
fortune.
money to be able to work on anything I want all the time.
Don't I can, and when you do, can I be included, and I'll just take a little piece and just sit in the corner, and I just want to write.
Yes. Yes. Isn't that every artist's dream?
I
Like,
think so.
how
I
can I
just
get the funds to facilitate this? Gosh,
we all need a rich uncle.
I know. I need it to be sunny. I didn't even know existed. So it's not sad.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly,
just
because I know my family's not the one.
right, right. That's
But
great.
well, thank you so much for coming on Tom Bigby Tales. I really appreciate your time and your insights. And I'm going to put your Instagram in the show notes if that's okay.
Oh, I'd love it. I,
Okay.
I appreciate you asking me to be on. This has been fun.
Well, this has been fun, and let's not let it go too far. Next time you have something cool you want to share, or
Okay.
maybe you just tell us more Waffle House stories. I think we should just have a waffle. I think we should just get people together who have Waffle House stories and just tell
I
stories.
do too. Oh my gosh. Yes.
I think I'm going to propose that. Okay, listeners, who's got a good Waffle House story? I want to do a Waffle House podcast episode. Share it. Bring it on, folks. All right. Well, thank you again for coming on Tom Bigby Tales. And I hope that all your miniatures on your wish list get done and get paid for would make it even better.
Yes.
All right, Lee, thank you again. And
Thank you.
this has been the Tom Bigby Tales. Good day.